what is your thought process on becoming a jack of all trades and then mastering all of those trades?
Well, the first thing is I will jump onto a project and I will focus solely on that project. I've boiled it down to basically this. I believe that.
What's up, fighters? We got an interview today with W. Bud Evans. He is a former Air Force officer. He's a former police officer. He has been doing flips, and he's also big on the BRRRR strategy. He's also been a police officer, a restaurateur, a former mayor. He's done economic development. He's been a hockey coach. He's been a program manager, and he has his MBA, as well as being a husband for 30 years and raising a kid now who's doing impactful work as an ICU nurse. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to talk to him. But one thing I got to talk to him about, and I want you to tune in for, is he says that he's a jack of all trades and a master of all of them as well. And I think that's something that you and I can both do, and that's what we're going to dig into today. Enjoy the episode. Good job. All right. What's up, fighters? We've got another great guest today. We've got a good friend, Mr. W. Bud Evans, and Bud and I connected through, again, another member of Military to Millionaire and a heavy hitter, shall we say. He's one of those guys who sits in the dark and doesn't say anything until you can't see it coming, and he hits you with some amazing wisdom. So let's get into it. Bud, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Oliver. It's good to be here.
Good, man. Good. I'm excited to have you here, as you know, you could already tell, and I told you about this before we got on. But Bud says a lot of crazy stuff. Bud's got a lot of stuff going on in life. Like, as you could tell from the intro, Bud has done a shit ton in his life, and I'm gonna go through it a little bit. I had to create a list just to get all the stuff that Bud has done. So we're gonna hit that list right now. Where is my list? Okay, here we go. So Bud has been a US Air Force officer. He's been a police officer. He's a former mayor, a restaurateur, an economic developer, a hockey coach, and a player, I'm assuming, just strictly from him and understanding the game. A project manager. He has his MBA. He's also an investor in real estate, specializing in flips and the BRRRR strategy for commercial and residential properties. And he teaches people how to build generational wealth through real estate. And he's been married for 30 years, which is an accomplishment in itself. And he's raised a kid who's out here doing positive stuff as an ICU nurse in the community. Bud is an absolute beast. And before we get into one of the key things that he says that I'll tell you guys in a bit about being a jack of all trades and a master of all of them as well, I want to let Bud have the floor for a little bit to talk about who he is, what he does, and then we're going to dive into his story, and then we're going to talk about the master of all trades, the jack of all trades and master of all trades. Bud, tell me about yourself, man. Tell the listeners and viewers about who you are.
Yeah, man, there's really not too much more that I can go into than you already have. I did 13 years as a cop. I am a Mustang, so I did 19 years enlisted and then did another 15 because, it wasn't enough punishment. Did another 15 as a commissioned officer in the Air Force. I was the mayor of Cinnaminson, got heavily involved in economic development there. We did a few things. An over 55 community, built 7 buildings at once, brought in a brand new supermarket, kind of a combination Walmart / Target. A couple of pad sites there, developed a storage facility, and it's a small community. So our business model, our business plan for the township was to increase revenue, increase ratables, keep taxes, property taxes level over the course of my tenure. And as of this recording, I haven't been on committee since 2018, and we haven't had a property tax raise since I left. So obviously, the things that I decided to do worked, and the people that replaced me were outstanding in and of themselves. So they just kind of carried on. I'm a licensed agent, just partnered with a broker on a property management company. We're taking that off and probably jumping into full steam ahead around October 1st. I got a couple of things I can't talk about yet because we haven't really introduced those. Working with Tariq El Moussa as well, who is on HGTV. I do some coaching for him. We're working on a new program for him as well. Underwrote about $100 million in deals, created a personal real estate portfolio of about $10 million. And that's all under Aim High Properties, which is we operate 8 subordinate companies. And that's from, portfolios to property management, all the way out to we actually have a hair salon. And I haven't been doing this for that long.
What the hell?
It's only been, been about October 2018, I really jumped into this. January, I got my first flip under contract. January 2019, and I've been going since.
All right, so there's a lot to dive into there. First of all, obviously, I'm gonna have to redo this intro. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna definitely have to redo the intro. I missed. I didn't know anything about the project management. I didn't know anything about the hair salon. All those. That anyway. Neither here nor there. Right. We'll address that later. Now, Bud, you've done all this stuff. Let's talk. Let's dive into your military career and then how you and we'll touch on how you got to each of those as we go along, so we can get as much of the scope of your story as possible, because you got a lot to happen. So I imagine we'll go over normally the 15-minute time frame, but nonetheless, I want to talk about it because this is fascinating to me that you've done all this stuff coming out of the Air Force. I don't know if they got some kind of different training in the Air Force than they do in the Army, but Jesus Lord Christ, I don't know how you're doing all this. So let's start from the jump. How'd you get into, what made you go into the Air Force? How did you feel about your decision? And then what was that transition like? And then what was their first step for the transition?
Yeah, so 1987, my parents got divorced. I realized I wasn't going to be able to go to college. I was going into my senior year when they split up. So I went into the delayed enlistment program. I figured my uncle did it. He made chief. I'll give it a shot. So here I was, 1987. I turned 18, and my delayed enlistment. I actually signed the docs down at MEPS in Philly, August of 1987.
Wow.
I was on my way down to Lackland. I did some time down there. I did about 3 years active duty. The Graham and Rudman came up with back in the day. We had these budget cuts, similar, kind of in a sense similar to BRAC and realignment and all that stuff. So it really kind of turned into it was a blessing in disguise. So I got offered Palace Chase, or I could sign up for another 4 years. Well, I didn't feel like staying at Langley Air Force Base for another 4 years, man. It was tough being an airman down there. It was first Tactical Air Command headquarters, and every day I'm walking around like this, because I started out with no stripes, man. I was at the bottom of the barrel, as they say.
Right.
So I did that and then left. 1990, came back home, jumped around. I don't want to say job to job. I was doing all right. I was a waiter. I was working in a kitchen. Listen, you can tell by my description that I have my hands in a bunch of different pots all the time.
Right.
So I was working as a valet. So I was running cars. I was in a kitchen at a very fancy restaurant down in Rittenhouse Square. When I wasn't doing that, I was waiting tables at a high end restaurant here in Philadelphia. My wife she wasn't my wife at the time. She was just my girlfriend. She was a hairstylist. So, it was what it was. You wanted to make ends meet, you had to hustle. So,
I love it.
fast forward to 92,
Okay.
actually it was 1991. I had an opportunity to jump into a restaurant. So I did put up about 25 grand, jumped into a little Italian restaurant over here. A little trattoria is actually what it was. And cooked some Mediterranean food for a couple of years, failed miserably,
Okay.
lost my tail. And, hey, look, man, I consider that an education expense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost about 80 grand overall, 25,000 out of pocket, 80,000 in unrealized losses total. And then with 25,000, I had to pay back because I actually took a loan on that.
Wow.
So that huge learning lesson. And I had really no place to go. And one day I got a phone call out of the blue from a buddy of mine because, military, it's your network. And he said, "Hey, man, there's a police department around here that's hiring. If you're interested, you got to fill out your application by today." So I did. I got hired. That was 1993. And yeah, man, did that for about 13 years. 9/11 happened.
Wow.
Got deployed a few times. Went back in 2004 as an air, basically active duty with the Guard, AGR, and stayed there until 2021. Made it to Master Sergeant, had a sniff at senior, and then decided to put on second lieutenant because why not?
I like it. I like it. Holy smokes. Okay, so good God, man. So you have definitely run the gamut, and it's interesting that you're AGR. That's a very well kept secret. I'm AGR as well in the Army side of it, and I imagine the same issues that I run into is the same ones that you ran into with being an AGR officer. You get tied to units that are reserve in nature, and it's you and one other
Yeah.
person, and y'all are doing it all. So I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. I 100% I get it. So let's go. Let's talk a little bit about how you end up getting into the real estate game then, because you were doing all that. You got deployed a couple times. You were still an officer. At what point did
Yeah.
you start leaking into the real estate world?
Yeah. It's a funny story. And at the same time, it's a huge warning. I don't know
Okay.
if people realize this or not, but back in the 1930s, apparently there was this thing where politicians were trying to force postal guys into voting for certain people and running for office. So they came up with this law called the Hatch Act or something like that. But I ran for office and I went to the JAG and I said, "Hey, look, I'm not a resident of Pennsylvania anymore. I live over in Jersey. Is it okay if I run for local office over there?" And I slid my paper across the table and they said, "Yeah, go ahead." Um,
Wow.
so I did. Two JAGs and one commander signed off on that paper, and I ran for local office a year and a half, and I won. A year and a half later, I came back and I got a phone call at 10 o'clock on a Friday night saying, "Hey, dude, you're breaking a federal law." But what are you talking about? Yeah, you can't be in public office.
Oh,
So I said, "Well, I have a document that says I was authorized
right.
by two JAGs and a commander." And they said, "Well, you need to resign." Otherwise, I said, "Okay, great, I'll resign." So Friday night,
Wow.
no kidding. Not only I made the phone calls that I needed to make, put my deputy mayor in charge, made it official on Monday because that was the next meeting, and then stepped down. Turns out, I was the right guy for the job at the right time, but was not really supposed to be in the position. Uh, did what I needed to do anyway.
Right.
Got it all taken care of. Got into economic development while I was the mayor, and that's really kind of what sparked my interest in real estate. I had always thought about being in it anyway, but when I started doing things like planning, zoning, and then the economic development committee and talking to people, storage guy had bringing in a storage unit from outside, and here I was thinking, why not me, man? You know,
Mm, yeah.
and a very good friend of mine who's still on committee now, his name is Al Segrist. I found out he didn't work. I'll make air quotes. He didn't work, right?
Right.
He owned a few rental properties, one commercial with a couple of apartments upstairs, a quad, some other thing, a couple of singles, and that was it. He didn't work anymore. And I was like, yeah, all right, that's for me. Well, when they made me resign in July of 2018, I said,
Mhm.
all right, well now I got 40 to 50 hours of my life back. Now I'm going to do what I thought about doing anyway. So I found a mentor. I signed up. Uh, October of 2018, September is late September when I signed up with the mentorship, but October is when I really started to kick it into high gear. November, I found my first property, went under contract, closed on that in December while I was sitting in Texas. And then I closed on my first flip and then started construction in January. The end of January, I had my first flip and two rental properties under contract and under rehab, and it was on, man. Next thing I knew, I had 10 wholesales, 30 flips, 21 rental properties in under 2 years. And
Love it.
here we are now with 8 companies and, just buying, buying, buying. I don't flip that much anymore. I don't really care
Right.
for it. I like to buy and hold. You and I
Yeah.
had that conversation.
Yes, buy and hold is the move. That is always the move in my opinion. Everybody who's listened to the show has heard my horror stories with flipping, but it is definitely in my opinion the move, especially right now because the market's going to turn, not in a negative way, but just going to turn. There's going to be a big shift in my opinion, particularly in multifamily real estate, commercial multifamily. But
Mm-hmm.
neither here nor there. So let's talk a little bit more about your. You got a saying, and this to me is huge because I really enjoyed this when I read your bio as well as this is in your intro. It'll be in the new intro as well. But you say, "I'm not just a jack of all trades. I'm a master of all of them." This is big because we hear the jack of all trades, master of none saying, and we all know there's a little bit more to
Yeah.
that. But for you to be able to say that, my question is always when somebody's like, "Hey, I mastered it." Let's dive in and let's break down how you figured out how to do that because of all the things you've done. That's obviously giving you a leg up, as well as understanding that thought process behind that, so that those who are watching and listening can do the same with whatever they're doing, be it military, be it real estate. Hopefully, more real estate than military, but no offense to the U.S. military. Just I like you guys to be rich. Just is what it is. So, with that
Yeah.
said, But what is your thought process on becoming a jack of all trades and then mastering all of those trades?
So I first keep it small. You heard the KISS rule. Everybody knows what the KISS rule is. Keep it simple,
Absolutely.
stupid. Well, the first thing is I will jump onto a project and I will focus solely on that project. I boiled it
Okay.
down to basically this. I believe that in any company, you have four facets of any company. And as long as you concentrate on, and not one of them can be weak, right? So I'm a big fan of the who, not how. So the first thing I do is I do a lot of research. I mean, I am a research junkie. The second thing that I do is integration, integration, integration. If I can get computer systems to work together, that's awesome. If I can get people to work together, that's even better. If I can get the systems and the people to work together, then that's the trifecta, man. You know, because then you've got input, output, and execution are
Absolutely.
all top notch. So
Absolutely.
the four pillars, you got your leadership chain, which is your integrator and your visionary. Uh, Picture Steve Wozniak as the integrator and Steve Jobs as the visionary, right? One person has the big scope, big picture. They're the person that goes out there and they're the ones who sell it to everybody. The integrator is
Mm-hmm.
the person who actually makes all the bells and whistles work together. Um, but you've got to understand both parts, right? So the first portion of that is dealing with the leadership and then establishing the actual company itself. And the company is
Okay.
broken up into three parts. First one is sales and marketing. I don't care who
Okay.
you are. I don't care what business you're in. You are selling and marketing all the time. If you're not selling a product, you are selling yourself. If you are selling a service, you are selling yourself. So if anybody says, I am not a salesman, you are not going to be successful. So sales and marketing is the first section. Second section is operations. So sales and marketing, they go out and they get stuff, right? They bring it in.
Right.
Operations make stuff happen. So your operations can be broken down into however you want to split it up. We have a marketing company, we have a property management company. I'll just take the property management company because this is the thing that I'm really diving into heavily right now. Your operations can be something as simple as who is running your maintenance requests, your
Mm-hmm.
vendor list, who is running all of the tenants are making phone calls to you and telling you that this is wrong, which we want, right? We want our tenants to call us and go, hey, listen, man, I heard this thing yesterday. I'm not sure what this is, but I think it should be checked out. Uh, we work on a tenant management process, not a property management process. If we believe if we take care of our people will take care of our houses and we don't have to worry about the houses as much. I can guarantee you this, man. Like there are people that will not tell you that the fascia is falling off of the house. They just won't because it's not their house and they don't care.
Right.
My tenants call up and they go, "Hey, bud, listen, I'm looking at this thing and here's what I'm seeing, and it looks like it might fall down."
Wow.
Okay, great. I sent somebody out, and it turns out we had a hole in the roof that was leaking in, and the wood underneath the soffit was rotting. So we
Wow.
went out and here's the other thing: we take care of our operations, takes care of the property because we have a saying: we're all in this together. It's actually the
Right.
company motto, and that means that the investor, the property manager, for lack of a better term, still tenant management, and the tenant, we are all part of the same team. So it is not just
Right.
a win-win; it is a win-win-win situation. So operations gets things done, and then last is finance. Finance is simply put, that's your accounting, but it's not just accounting. And people forget that it's your finance department that's supposed to take care of your key performance indicators, do
Mm-hmm.
all of your analysis and all of your forecasting. Where are we? Where were we? Where are we? And where will we be able to go in short succession if we execute? If any one of those things are weak, and you've seen it, I'm sure, being a military guy, you've seen what happens when you get weak leadership. You
Yep.
get everybody, all the infighting starts to happen. But if you have strong leadership, that's awesome. But now let's say you have weak sales. Well, now your operations is strong, your finance is strong, but you have weak sales. Well, you're not getting enough to keep the operations guys happy, and you're not doing enough to keep the finance guys happy. If any one of the legs is bad, the stool falls over. Right. So
Ooh.
operations is weak, then you have all of these customers coming in. Your operations team can't handle it. Your clients start getting pissed off. They start taking off. And then you have your finance guys that are going, yo, dude, why are we losing people? Now you
Right.
can't forecast effectively because your sales are going down or whatever it is. And last, if the first two are strong and your finance is weak, you got money just going out the back door. You have no idea where it's going. You're not accounting for it. You're just spending it. Just watch the profits go up because you're not going to be making any money.
Right.
So that's the basis of kind of what I teach to my guys in our program.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the first thing that I concentrate on each company that I develop. Then don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? As you're learning, dude, when you're a baby and you stand up for the first time and you're holding on to that table, you fall, boom, right? First
Right.
time I stepped on the ice with skates, boom, face plant, right?
It's a
I
rite of
mean,
passage.
I've
It's a
been
rite of
coaching hockey
passage.
forever, right? Every little kid steps on the ice, they fall on their face, right? They
Yep.
get up,
That's a
some of them
fact.
cry, some of them shake it off. Within a couple of steps, man, I can have those kids skating. It's not hard. They just got to be willing to stand back up again and
Right.
drive, right?
Right.
So we get into that grind aspect of it. But yeah, you make mistakes until you stop making mistakes, and the goal is to not make the same mistake twice. And
Right.
if you do, change your system, annotate everything, have standard operating procedures, PPCs and SOPs, man. It's what we live by: processes, procedures, checklists, standard operating procedures. But I mean, man, that's kind of how we do it. And the other thing is this:
Mm-hmm.
as I progress through a certain section, I will replace myself as quickly as possible. So I know everything that I need to do because I've done it and I've jacked it all up. I've screwed it all up and now I've gotten it right and I wrote it all down and I put it into the
Right.
PPCs and the SOPs. And the next person that comes in, I don't hire people who don't know what they're doing. So we use a process called Buildium. It's a program called Buildium for our property management company. I didn't hire, a $5 an hour employee to come in here and just, okay, here's Buildium, go, right? I said, okay, these are the processes that we use. If you need anything, here's the library on a Google Drive, but I'm hiring somebody who already has extensive experience in Buildium. So, and that's what we did with that. Same thing with sales and marketing. I have a sales team. They're coming in. I paid them a large amount of money up front to show me how to get those things working. And then our finance person, we have somebody who's coming in to do QuickBooks online and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
hired on the who, not how principle, right? So now I
Mm-hmm.
have all the hows written down, but
Right.
if they already know all the stuff and how the systems work, then all they have to do is learn my SOPs, not so much the processes. Does that
Right.
make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So really the gist of being the jack of all trade and a master all of them isn't just you mastering them yourself. Is you mastering the ability to help someone else to master that. So what happens is just like you
That's
said,
right.
you get into a business and you replace yourself as quickly as possible with another version of you who happens to be Tim Joe or Joe Snuffy, who we all love and love
Mm-hmm.
to talk about. So Snuffy comes in and he becomes the new Bud Evans and he's running the ship, leading the show. That is amazing. And the fact that you have basically laid out those principles that anyone can follow and dive into is huge, I think, in my opinion. That's gargantuan. So with you doing all of this, how is it that you've developed these systems, you are going through all this? At what point on each one do you say, okay, I've got it, it's time to move on to another one? Is it when you replace yourself, or is that a time frame that hits before you replace yourself and you say, okay, like you are now, you're like, hey, I got to replace myself? At what point do you say, all right, it's time for me to shift into the next action, the next movement, the next business?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things here, a few different schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
First is if you're in like a service industry, like, I don't know, HVAC or construction or contracting, plumbing, electric, you should be making a certain amount of revenue before you actually hire someone to replace you, hire another person.
Got
I
it.
look at it from my perspective because even though we're in a service industry, I'm not running around. I can do everything from my desk.
Right.
Occasionally, I got to get out of the office, man. You just got to see the sunlight, right? After working in a skiff for however long,
Oh,
you just
well,
got to get the
oddly
heck out of
enough,
it.
before you keep going, I work in a skiff. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't really want to come out the skiff. I am 100% lying. Keep going, bud. Keep going, bud. Keep going.
No windows, man. No windows. Yeah. So, yeah, I try to get out of there as fast as possible. What I look for is the sweet spot just before task saturation.
Okay.
All right. So
Okay.
I know that I'm dealing with, right. When you're a solopreneur, man, you are leadership, you are sales and marketing, you are operations, you are finance. You're doing it all yourself,
Yeah.
and you're watching your stress levels go up. And if you're doing it right, you're watching your business go up, and you're watching your revenues go up.
Right.
Well, the first thing I did was I went out and I got an executive assistant, Ron. If you've watched my podcast or if you've seen my Friday Live in the AMI REI, then you know everybody knows Ron, right? I also have Lay, who's a producer on the show, and she's also my marketing director. Um, First thing I did was I went out and I got myself an executive assistant, and Ron took over my emails. He took over my all of the stuff that is just like ridiculously simple. He answers my
Right.
phones. All the stuff that I don't have the time to deal with. If something's important, I'm not kidding. It's this simple. If something's important, an email. He clicks the important star right on my Gmail, and it immediately populates in both Asana and in an AI based calendar called
Right.
Motion. Well, it pops up on my calendar. I get these little gray lines. I'm like, oh, that must be important. Let me go check that out. Click, and I'll do that twice a day. I'll do that like 10 right before my 11 o'clock meetings, and at about 2:30. Takes about 15 to 30 minutes tops. And I'll go through all those emails, return calls if I have to, and that's it, man. That's so he took all that stuff off my plate for nowhere near what I make an hour, and that's the thing. Like if you're going to pay somebody $5 an hour to cold call, if you're in real estate,
Yeah.
and you're the one who's actually doing the cold call, if you're doing all the cold calling and somebody else can do that quality stuff for five
Yeah.
bucks an hour, then you're a $5 an hour employee in your own company. Don't
Mm.
waste your money. Hire somebody as quickly as possible. Get yourself out of that so you can concentrate on the bigger picture.
That
And that's
that's
that's kind of that's so you when I say master of all,
yeah.
I look at it more along the lines of the master's level of education than the finance
Mm.
level. So or than the bachelor's level.
Right.
So you've got, I mean, look, man, industry, right? That's what I don't care. Military, law enforcement, or you're in corporate America.
Right.
We're all based on the same tiered structure. Everything is a pyramid scheme. Anybody who tells you different is wrong. You have your
That's good.
grunts who are in the trenches and they're doing all their stuff and they're led by a manager. You get a couple of those grunts, groups of grunts, right? Platoon,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got a platoon,
Yep.
you got a company
Yep.
commander, you got your platoon leader, you got a company, you got your company commander, so on and so forth. So, and it all kind of flows up the hill. Well, the grunts are at the high school diploma level. Then you've got your platoon leaders who are at your bachelor's level. And then you've got your company commanders who are at your master's level, and they get to see a little bit more. When you get to brigade,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys know this, you've got to have this strategic overview of all this stuff. Aim High Properties is, I don't want to say it's a brigade because I don't have, was it 1,000 people in it? We're not that big. 10,000, right? 10,000 at
Yeah.
brigade
Yeah.
level, 1,000 at the company level. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
The point being is
Thereabouts.
that
Yeah.
you want to get that bird's eye view and you want to be able to look down and you want to be able to manage simple tasks at a higher level, centralized command with decentralized control. Same
Mm.
thing, right? Same thing with your companies. Just make sure that everybody is on the same page all throughout the ranks. That's some Sun Tzu stuff right there, man.
High quality knowledge right there. That's a fact. That's it's amazing you say that. My next question was going to be how much of the military experience have you transferred into your business, but based on how you're saying it and how you break it down, it's clear a lot of what the military has taught you, being military, be a police officer, I'm sure as being a former mayor, all that has shifted into what you do now. So with that in mind, let me ask you this instead:
Yeah.
which one of those principles for each position that you fulfilled as a coach, as a negotiating big deals, as a property manager now, as a project manager, as a former mayor, for each thing that you did, what's the one thing that you've taken and implemented into how you function now? Because there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, but normally there's like a key few things that just stick in your head and you just run with, and that helps you carry through. So what are those things for you?
I can give you three simple words. It's simply put, it's delegate, trust, and verify.
Oh, my favorites.
That's it,
My
man.
favorites. I love it. I
Right?
love it. Yeah.
Because if you're micromanaging, then you've lost your people. People do not respond well to that.
They don't. Yeah.
So a couple of things that we do, and I believe in it wholly. So Tony Robbins has this DISC profile, right?
Okay.
And it is just a personality. I'm not going to go deep into it. I will just tell you that it's worth the $81. to go out and get the disc profile test done and find out where your people stand, and then find out you can find out from their questions, from their answers on that test, exactly how they like to be led and exactly how they don't like to be led. And you have to change your leadership style. And anybody who says, I treat all my people the same, you're a sucky leader. You're
Mm,
horrible. They just go away, because there are people that need to be treated in a certain way. You have some people that are fantastic with numbers who are, maybe they're in a shell. Maybe they don't have an outstanding personality. Maybe their idea of personal contact is when they're walking down the hallway, they're looking at your feet instead of your face.
right.
Everybody's got a different personality style. Everybody's got a different learning style. Everybody's got to be led in different ways. So you've got to find out what each person is more apt to open up about and how to get to them, how to actually connect with them, and then use that to your ability so that you can connect with that person. You got to connect with everybody. There's always a way to connect with everybody. And if you're not doing that, you're selling them and yourself short. Versus the football player from, the most popular kid in class who is, 6'1", 230, pure muscle, who has, 4.0 and whatever. That guy's going to be pretty easy to deal with. You just go like, hey, dude, this is my goal, go, right? But these guys over here are, hey, man, this is the spreadsheet that we're looking at. Is there any way you can improve that spreadsheet? And they look at you like, kind of side-eyed looking at your knees. And
Right.
you go, look, man, I want you to take this spreadsheet and nerd out on it. Have a blast. All I need to know is key performance indicators, this, and this. Can you make that work?
Right.
Uh-huh. Okay, great.
Mm,
Let me see what you got. You got a day. Is that enough time? An hour later, man, you're getting this 7-page workbook of all these different spreadsheets showing you things that you never even thought were possible. And you're bringing that over to your finance department. They use maybe 10% of it because they don't get it. You get
right.
all
Of
the
course.
all the ducks in a row, you get them all coordinated, and all of a sudden you have this forecasting system that is just like, you see the trend. They'll show you 6 months out. Maybe you're going down a little bit, maybe you're going up a little bit, depending on. But taking each person, finding a way to give them the responsibility of doing what it is they're good at,
Mhm.
trust that they're going to get that done, and then verify that periodically. We every week we do this. It's an EOS model system where we do this level 10 meeting where we go through this whole process, this specific agenda and how it's broken down, and we break that out, and that's our verification system. Hey, are we on track? And
Right.
that's it, man. Like, are we on track? Are we off track? What's going on?
That's I think that's I, I'm having a hard time putting into words, but I think it's just the smartest move, particularly as a leader, just with using your team to succeed in your movement forward. And it's not about you having the idea. A lot of the times it's about them having the idea. Because if you believe it or
Yeah,
not, a lot of the people who are working in these businesses, you as an entrepreneur, you get this, bud, but like they want to be there. And they want to be there either when you inspire them, either they might be passionate about the job, whatever it is. So when you give them the opportunity to do something great, they normally take it and just it just takes off. They skyrocket with it. So I'm happy to
yeah.
hear that those things are the trust and verify and delegate are the move to you, because I think that's something I believe in, particularly as being a military officer now. That's huge for me, and it's been
Yeah,
huge for me
Oliver,
both
when's
on
I
both
mean, how
sides.
many times have you seen it where you're like, "Hey, I need to get this done. Can you handle this?" And you don't give them the use this. You don't
Yeah.
give them a checklist. You just say, "Hey, look, this is point A. I need to
Yep.
get to point B. I
Yep.
understand that you're an expert in that field. Can you make that happen?" And
Yep.
then watch the fireworks, man.
Yeah, that's the fact. And the key part I think to it is you ask as a question. It's not provided as an instruction. It said, "Hey, can
Yeah,
you fix this slideshow? I want it to look like this, but I don't know if that's the right move. What do you think?" And they will take it. And not only will they give you their thoughts, they're going to give you a 20-minute dissertation on the right way to do it versus the wrong way to do it, because they've been doing it longer than you have any doggone way. So you're like, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. But I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. What you say is exactly the truth, and it rings 100% true. And I know we're tight on time, so I'm gonna guess. We're gonna hop on one more question, and damn it, we're gonna have to have Bud again because Bud's just got so much. We're gonna have to have Bud back on. But um, you have broken down your principles. You've broken down exactly how you go about building your business and building out your business and knowing when to shift and all this great stuff. How have you mastered probably the most important part of your life and most important part of anybody who has a partner? How have you mastered that so-called work-life balance? How have you maintained all these things and still maintain a positive relationship with your missus and a positive relationship with your son, who's an ICU nurse, so he's going to be busy all by himself anyway? How are you doing that for yourself and your family?
Yeah, man. Anybody who says that there's such a thing as a work-life balance is not an entrepreneur. There is no such thing as a work-life balance.
Fact.
You are working all the time. You are, but guess what? You're also a family man all the time.
Yep.
So, a couple of different things. First, let me attack this at the source. My wife is always right. The end. Like that's it. Right?
I'm looking
If
around,
she
making sure
wants to,
mine's not
if
looking
she
in.
wants to go to Aruba, we're going to Aruba, man. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's like, hey, she wants to go out to dinner on Saturday night, and I've got something scheduled. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Yep. Yep.
Now, in all honesty, man, it's this. So I'm big on time blocking. But I will. I take charge in a lot of things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what I was thinking for Saturday. What do you think? Hey, this is what I was thinking for this weekend. Hey, this is what I was thinking for that weekend. We had an impromptu. Hey, I want to get out of town for a few days. You feel like going to Aruba for a week? And her response was, can we be home by Wednesday? Yeah. Okay. No problem. Right. Um, just make time for each other. Right. I mean, who's going to say no to that anyway? But
Right.
in all reality, dude, here's the thing. When it all comes down to it, if I were to fail in every business that I have and live under a bridge, she would probably do it with me.
Mm.
Uh, so I put 100% trust in her. She puts 100% trust in me. And if
Right.
we fail, suck it up, right? Because we, it's move along. And I'm not going to say that we don't fight. We don't get loud and throw tables and stuff, but it's just when it comes down to it, you got to be willing to sit back and go, all right, I'm losing my cool. This is on me. All right,
Right.
I'm listening. Go ahead and talk. Uh, or I need a minute to process. Let me back away. We'll pick this up in 5 minutes if that's okay, because I'm right now my brain is spinning and I'm not hearing what you're saying, and I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying, but can we come back to this in a minute? And that's just kind of it. The other thing is, like, my son called me today. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I got tickets to the Phillies game on Wednesday." I'm like, "All right." He goes, "It's the Braves." I'm like, "Didn't need to say it was the Braves. You didn't. You want to spend time with the old man? I just blocked off my calendar, man. It's good. Let's go."
I love it. I
He's
love it.
31. His wife is in law school. He's an associate, or he's an assistant director at Temple now. So it's like we don't have a lot of time to hang out. So it's you do what you can. Same thing with like my parents. My dad's 80. His family, his entire family, all of his friends, they were in their 70s when they were all dying. Here he is, and I'm like, I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to take my dad out to lunch again.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of trying to figure out how many years he's got left and going like, well, I still have 10 years. I go, no, no, no. Here's the thing. And this is the importance of putting time blocking. So
Right.
I'll try to wrap this all up in a second here, but I look at this way. If I can get with my dad, just because he's down in the Jersey Shore, I'm over here. Sometimes he's in Philly. He's remarried. He's running around all the time. I'm running around all the time. My wife and son are running around all the time. I've got responsibilities here. If I can see him once a month and he lives 2 more years, that's only 24 days I have left with my dad in the next 2 years.
Right. Wow.
Make it work,
Mm.
right? My
Right.
when you have a child, 98% of the time you spend with your child is before they graduate high school. After that, find the time. And
Mm.
and the last thing is this: as far as family goes, with your spouse, with your significant other, with your partner, they're number one. I don't care if it's kids. I don't care if it's moms and dads, your mom and dad, her mom and dad, his mom and dad. It doesn't matter. It starts here, right? If
Right.
we have a partnership, if we have a marriage, it's here. Like nothing is more important than right here, right now. In fact, when we're off this, I've shut down for the night. So, in fact, today I got a call. Somebody got tied up on a call. They called me at 5 o'clock tonight. And I was like, I'm very sorry. I just cooked dinner for my wife and I. This is her time. That's it. I don't care how
Let's
much money I'm
go,
going to make on
bud.
this deal. I'll see you tomorrow, man.
I love it.
Right there.
I love it.
That's it. So now the work part of that is this.
Mhm.
There are going to be vacations. Like I was just at the Jersey Shore. I just put together a new CRM for the coaching program. We just integrated it all with Facebook, and it's now with Go High Level and all these different programs. So now I've got all of these things coming up, and we just put out this new funnel that we're dealing with, and and I have my assistant who was working, Lay was working on this, and she put out this thing, and it's ding, 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 and my phone's going, and I'm answering 25, 30 things at a time
Right.
all weekend long, but I made sure that I was only doing that for like 20 minutes of every hour that we were together, because I want to make sure that I'm putting that phone away and sitting there and my toes are in the sand. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Cracking a beer on the beach, my
Right.
toes are in the sand, enjoying the sun, listening to the water. You got to do that.
Love it. Yeah. Love
So
it.
it's not a matter of work-life balance, because you're never going to be 50-50. There's no way to balance it. It's what's more important at the time, and make sure you're blocking time off for the things that are important.
I listen. I am. First of all, at first I was surprised that your son was ICU nurse and he's doing the thing at Temple. I was like, man, there's no way he's doing both of those things, which may or may not be the case. But either way, the apple clearly doesn't fall far from the tree, and it's just I say this all the time, and I tell my friends this, and I tell any listener who will hear me out or any viewer who will see it. There is a balance somewhere. You're never gonna find it. And just like you
No.
said, it's because life is always moving. The people you're around are developing and evolving, and so are you, and so are your business. So it's kind of this, you're doing this all the time. And the fact that you
Yeah.
time block is something that I'm working on and learning now to do in my own household, not just with my wife and my kids, but also with work. Because military, you're in there from 8 to normally about 5 o'clock, 4:30 at night, depending on your work hours and where you work. And even then, you may not touch your phone, so you're not getting anything done. So you have to set aside those 2 hours. That 2 hours may be the best for you, 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, suck it up, Buttercup. It's about to be an early morning. Break
Yeah.
out the coffee, right? You got to make it happen.
That's it.
But just the same, just like you said, you have to break that time out. And I constantly think about that. And I think that's huge. That's actually solidified quite a few things that I've been thinking about the last few weeks. Now, with that said, normally at this part of the show, we do what's called Troop to Task.
Hello, 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 hello.
Troop to Task, for those who are listening and viewing, is what Bud is going to do. He's going to give you one thing you can do right now to push forward. It could be in real estate. It could be in your personal life. It could be you getting on the ice right now and going to skate and figuring out how to play hockey by the weekend. Whatever it is, Bud's going to give it to you. So, Bud, the floor is yours. What is this week's Troop to Task?
Yeah. Depending on where you're starting. So let's say this. If you haven't, let me just say, if you haven't downloaded Audible, do that now. If you're not reading one book a month or listening to one book a month, you're doing it wrong. I would definitely recommend that. There are 30 books that I could recommend right now, but if you are already established and you are starting your business right now, read Traction by Gino Wickman. Check that out. Look at the EOS model. If you are running a business and you are a solopreneur, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to find yourself becoming more organized.
I love it. And I'll give you a bonus, ladies and gentlemen, a bonus book for you. I'm making my way through this one right now. It's called The Gap in the Game. The Gap in the
Oh, yeah.
Game. That book, woo, it's so good. You'll thank me later. I'm telling you, check it out. Understand that you are normally in the gap, but you can always put yourself into the game. And when you read it, you'll understand. It's all about your perspective. Now, with that said,
Yeah,
Bud,
man.
it's been an absolute honor and pleasure. I want to make sure people are able to track you down and get a hold of you. How do people get to talk to you at whatever time or however?
Yeah, man. Here's a few things. First, at bud.evans, you know what? Skip Instagram. I'm not really concentrating on Instagram right now. I do have a lot of stuff that I put up on Instagram, but forget Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, you can DM me through Instagram. That's fine. But I would highly recommend that if you are interested in learning anything about real estate or anything about leadership, jump into two things. First is the Aim High REI. That's Aim High REI, as in the Aim High Real Estate or Network of Real Estate real estate investors, right? The second one is the Aim High Podcast.com, the Aim High Podcast.com. And you can always reach out to me by budevans.com and just reach out to me through that.
Aim High Podcast. Shout out to the Aim High Podcast family who's out there watching and listening. I am part of the Aim High Podcast family. So it is a dope podcast. I definitely recommend it for anybody and everybody who's listening, who's in the military, who's in business, who's working on mindset, whatever it might be. It just, trust me, it's like the gap in the gain. It's on the level of the gap in the gain right now. So go check it out. But now I know Bud's got to go, and I'm probably going to hold on to him for like 5 more minutes after this. But I'm going to let you guys go. Remember, you're better than you were, but you're not half as good as you're going to be. Me and Bud have enjoyed you guys. We love you guys. We'll see you soon. And make sure you go check out Aim High Podcast and go leave a review. All right? I'll see you later.
This is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they